Ichiro brought the tears, and the Mariners brought plenty of cheers this weekend. Let's talk about it here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Locked On Mariners podcast. It is Monday, August 29th, 2022, and thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms with new episodes dropping every Monday through Friday. I am your host, Ty Gonzalez, joined as always by my co-host, Colby Patnode. We cover the Mariners over at InsideTheMariners.com for Fan Nation over on the Sports Illustrated Network. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at LO_Mariners. Follow Inside the Mariners at Inside Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Be sure to also check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/control the zone. We post 2 additional podcasts on there every single week. Again, that is patreon.com/control the zone. And if this is your first time joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast, welcome to the show. If you like what you hear, give us a follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to this. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. On the show today, we'll dive into what we learned from the Mariners series victory over the Guardians and just our overall thoughts from the series. Ichiro's speech and Colby's experience at Ichiro weekend at T-Mobile Park this past weekend. And now that we have final details on Julio Rodriguez's contract extension, we'll dive into those and tell you what it all means and how it all works out for the Mariners and one Mr. Julio Rodriguez. But first, let's get into this series. This past weekend, the Mariners take 3 of 4 from the Guardians, and if not from, for some atrocious umpiring by home plate umpire Lance Barrett and some missed opportunities here and there by the Mariners offense, the Mariners probably sweep the Guardians this weekend. It was a very impressive series by the Mariners and what they were able to do in a playoff atmosphere for most of these games. And Colby, I'm just going to start out by asking you what's on every single one of our listeners' minds right now and what's on my mind right now. Some of our listeners knew that you were at the game yesterday, and I got a couple messages about what your thoughts were and what was going through your head when Dylan Moore hit a 3-run home run in front of you to put the Mariners up 3-0 over the Guardians yesterday off of Aaron Savali, a right-handed pitcher who had been shutting down the Mariners all afternoon long. What was going through your head when that happened?
Broken clock and whatnot. No, I was cheering because I'm not soulless. I want the Mariners to do well. And if Dylan Moore does well, then the Mariners do well. I don't care about any of that nonsense. Was I quite as happy as when Jake Lamb hit one the night before? No, but I was still happy. It's baseball. It's Dylan Moore. I don't have anything against the guy. I just hate his swing with a passion. Savali threw him a cookie. He didn't miss it. And the Mariners they win basically on that swing, as weird as it sounds. Didn't know it at the time, but, because Robbie Ray was so dominant, the bullpen was so dominant, that was all that the Mariners needed. They did get one more later. But yeah, it was nice. Dylan Moore has had stretches even this year where he's been a solid player, particularly through the suspensions. So, again, I don't need to see Dylan Moore against righties. I got that question a few times last night too. Should they platoon JP Crawford and Dylan Moore now? The answer is no. But is it fine if Dylan Moore plays more than once a week? Yeah, that's fine. So, I was happy when he hit it. I don't care. You guys know I'm a longtime Dylan Moore fan. Go check the tapes from 2020, the winter of 2020. And I never wavered. So I was quite happy with Dylan Moore.
Long time Dylan Moore stan, Colby Patnode, as we all
go check the tapes in 2020.
As we're all aware. Yes. No, it's true. It's true. When everyone was clamoring for Colton Wong, you were saying, why not just give Dylan Moore a chance at second base? And
told you so.
They shouldn't have listened to you, unfortunately. So aside from Dylan Moore, I thought this was a very good series for the Mariners. Obviously, the pitching was incredible. last 2 days in particular, with Luis Castillo and then Robbie Ray. Luis Castillo had a called strike plus whiff percentage of 36% in his start. He struck out 10 in his start. Unfortunately, had the pitch count run up on him, so he was not able to finish that game, and then we know how that game unfortunately ended. But still, that should not discredit anything that Luis Castillo did on Saturday night. He was dominant. He shoved. Robbie Ray shoved yesterday too. He was awesome to watch. Even Marco Gonzalez had a really, really good start in the series. We talked about that a little bit, I believe, on our last episode. So a lot of good stuff coming from the Mariners in this one. And I feel like, this series kind of served as a reminder and also a little bit of a learning experience for the Mariners and Mariners fans, and kind of what this team is. And look, we know how, this roster is constructed. We know what their strengths, we know what their weaknesses are. We know that. We know how they are going to win ball games and how they are going to ultimately lose ball games. But I think that it kind of reminded us that, after a disappointing stretch, they lose 3 of 5 to the A's and the Nationals, and it's just, vibes are kind of down, and now a really good team is coming to your ballpark. And we all know about Hall of Fame induction weekends at T-Mobile Park and how they typically don't go well for the Mariners, right? And of course, Ichiro induction night did not go well for the Mariners in true Mariners fashion. They are now 4-5 on Hall of Fame induction nights, just for the record there. But it just kind of felt like this was getting set up for disappointment. But I think the Mariners reminded us that this team just never gets too low, no matter what happens. And I mean, we should have, already gone through this process when they were 10 games under 500 and then, made this incredible comeback to get back into the playoff conversation and even get to the top of the wild card conversation. But, we've kind of been, a few months removed from that now, and so maybe you forget. Maybe once things start to get bad again, because they haven't been super bad for a while, you panic a little bit. But I think this series was a good reminder to keep us grounded, to remind us to reel it in a little bit here. This team just does not get too down on itself. The other thing too, there's been a lot of questions about how this team would perform in the playoffs. This was a postseason series. Whether it happened in the regular season or not, this was a postseason series. And they showed you that when the time comes, the pitching is going to be able to step up. And yeah, they're not going to be able to generate a ton of offense against good pitching staffs. They're just not. They're not capable of doing that. Hopefully you see a little bit of a better product come October when, not the whole team is basically slumping all at once, like Julio and Ty France and etc. But you're obviously not going to be able to count on a ton of runs coming from this team. But the one thing that you are going to be able to count on is the starting pitching, especially your top dogs with Robbie Ray and Luis Castillo to be able to step up in the moment, and then this bullpen to be able to shut the door. This team is very much capable. I'm confident now after watching this series that they had against New York, both in Seattle and New York, that they are capable of winning playoff games and actually winning playoff series. They have the tools in place. Obviously, execution is going to be a big part of that in the moment, but there's a formula here to winning playoff games and to be able to advance through the playoffs. I feel that's what we learned from this series. What's your take on it?
Yeah. First of all, I think we can all accept they're a good team. I think we can also all accept they're not a great team. They're not an elite team. There's only 2 or 3 of those teams anyways. The offense is in a really bad spot right now. And you're putting so much pressure on your defense and your pitching to basically be perfect. And when you have this offense that is so reliant on hitting a home run, Jerry Dipoto himself went on the radio and said, our offense right now is basically, draw a walk and hope the next guy hits a home run. That's not a sustainable, goal towards success. It just, you can't have that. So, and yet there's not a lot of hope that, Julio's close, or that, Cal Raleigh's close, or that JP's going to magically, get better. Like Frazier's slumping right now. Like there's just not a ton of hope right now in those bats when you watch those at bats. Hopefully Ty Francis Sunday is the start of a turnaround. But we'll see. You kind of have to do it a couple days in a row before anybody starts to buy it. So I think the pitching, is good enough. I think if the I thought about this yesterday at the game. If the Mariners, if you could push a button and the Mariners scored 4 runs every single game for 162 games, they're probably winning 100 games. That's how good the pitching is. So you just have to buy the pitching a little bit of a margin of error, just a tiny bit. Give the ball to the bullpen with a 3-run lead every once in a while. How about we do that once in a while? So it's just one of those things. Munoz is been, they've ridden him pretty hard over the last month or so. So the one thing he hasn't proven that he can do consistently is the 3 games in 4 days thing. It tends to be where he struggles. You can go back to back just fine. 2 out of 3 just fine. It's just the 3 games in 4 days now. Fortunately, they didn't need to use him on Sunday. He'll have Monday off. And so you'll get the back-to-back days off, which should help. We'll see. I bet the Mariners would sure like to stay away from him on Tuesday as well, because he's an incredibly important part of this team. But yes, they're going to have to pitch, and they're going to have to find a way to score some runs that don't come via the long ball, because you're not going to hit a ton of home runs in the postseason. Your team's not even built to hit a ton of home runs, period. You have like 3 guys who are legitimate 30 home run bats, and everybody else is 20-ish max. It's just not a good sustainable offense. So, but the pitching can take you pretty deep in the postseason, and it's pretty much taken the Mariners all the way to the wild card 1, where I think right now they're a half game out behind Tampa.
Yep.
So, yep, they can win like this. It's just your margin of error is basically 0, and that's a stressful place to be.
Yeah, and I don't think that, this is what the offense is going to be the rest of the way, because, everyone is just extremely struggling outside of a couple guys like Mitch Haniger, right? Like, everyone in this lineup right now is kind of going through a little bit of a slump. Obviously, Ty Francis, the big one. Julio's struggling still. He hasn't, been great since coming back from his injury. Eugenio Suarez kind of fell, into the tank a little bit over the last few days. And then, the rest of the lineup, it's just kind of, who's going to show up, basically, who's going to step up. And sometimes it's no one, because right now just so many guys are going through it. Cal Raleigh's another guy who's just going through it right now. So I don't suspect that that's going to continue for the rest of the season, where just everyone is slumping all at once. But they're going to need to get a couple of guys, hot at every single moment that they can for the rest of the way here, so they can avoid these big cumulative slumps that we're seeing right now. So hopefully this is kind of a sign here, like Ty France having a good day on Sunday, kind of getting the monkey off his back there with the single into left, and then home rain on his next at bat. Hopefully we see Julio start to, now that he's getting further removed from his wrist thing, that he starts swinging the bat a little bit better. Hopefully, Suarez, who's been really good for the most part over the last couple weeks, hopefully he, gets back on the horse here after, not a great series against Cleveland. Hopefully, Cal Raleigh starts to do what he was doing, before the last couple weeks, So, and I think that that's going to happen, right? Naturally, that's just going to happen, because there's just, ups and downs naturally of baseball. But, when every player is just kind of hitting their downs all at once, it really, really hurts you. So, but hey, there's also the possibility on the flip side of that, vice versa, that maybe everyone plays to their 100th percentile at some point this season. And that would be huge if that could happen in October, or towards the end of September there. That would be nice. So we'll see how it goes. But I think this was a really good series for the Mariners, really good litmus test for them. And I'm really intrigued to see how these two teams play each other again. That's going to be happening right after this Detroit series in Cleveland, which would be the site for a wild card matchup between these two teams if that were to happen. Obviously, Mariners would have to be the wild card 3. It's still a possibility. But they did get some help from the Angels, of all teams, this past weekend, who destroyed the Blue Jays. Like, just absolutely drag them this weekend in Toronto. So that helps the Mariners. They're chasing the Rays, as you said, by half a game. But they can certainly make that up pretty quick here. And, the standings are still going to fluctuate quite a bit. Anyway, let's get into to Ichiro and Ichiro weekend, the speech, the experience, all of it in just a moment. But real quick, a message from the NHTSA. Are you one of those people who thinks it's okay to drive stoned? What's the worst that can happen? You end up driving below the speed limit? It's no big deal, right? Wrong. The truth is your reaction times slow way down when you're high. You not only put yourself in danger, but everyone around you. Talk about a buzzkill. Stop kidding yourself. It's not okay to drive high. If you've been using marijuana in any form, do not get behind the wheel. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, just like you do here every single day. Greatly appreciate your support. Believe we are closing in on 3,200 subscribers on YouTube if we're not there already. So thank you for that. Let's get to 4K. Would love to get to 4K by the end of the season, at least. That would be cool. Help us get there. Tell your friends, tell any Mariner fan you know, even if you hate them, even if you hate their guts. Maybe, because you hate them, you want them to, listen to Colby talk for 5 minutes.
Ty, just tell the people what they want to hear. If we get to 4K by the end of the year, Ty will give you his Ichiro bobblehead. Done. Boom.
So I got very lucky. My wife's coworker, totally unrelated, not a Mariners fan at all. I don't know why he and his partner felt compelled to go to a Seattle Mariners game or felt compelled to go to Seattle in general, but apparently they were there this past weekend, went to yesterday's game, and got a bobblehead somehow because, like you had told me off air, the lines were long. So, again, this is not a Mariners fan or anything like that, but I guess they waited in line, got the bobblehead, and they're giving it to me. So I'm getting an Ichiro bobblehead. That's awesome.
And they can soon be yours if you just hit that subscribe button.
Or Colby will give you the Ichiro bobblehead that he was given by one of our listeners.
Yes. Entered the stadium yesterday. Was hanging out with some buddies. A couple of us decided to stay one more day. It was fantasy draft weekend for us, so we all got a house in Federal Way. Did the draft on Saturday, went to Saturday night's game. 4 of us decided to go to Sunday's game, or had decided to go to Sunday's game. Walked through the gates of the pen, and I ran into a nice fella named Victor who recognized me. Didn't mention you at all, so that's, kind of tells us all we need to know.
Victor, what the heck, man?
I think maybe he might have referred to you as that Gonzalez guy, but that's fine.
The Gonzalez guy.
Yes, I ran into Victor. Had a nice, short little chat with him. He asked me if I wanted one of the extra bobbleheads that he had picked up, and I said sure, and he was kind enough to give it to me. I also briefly met his wife. And then once again, I ran into somebody in the team store who had recognized me. Unfortunately, I didn't catch his name, so if that was you, it was nice to meet you. Let us know. We'll give you a shout out on the next podcast. But yeah, it was fun. It's the first time that's ever happened to me. So it was nice to know that there are people out there listening to the podcast and going to the games and all that stuff. And I just happened to run into a couple of them. So that was cool. Again, thanks, Victor. I really appreciate it.
So, yeah, thank you, Victor, first of all, for listening to the show, even though you didn't mention me or give me a bobblehead, even though, I wasn't there or anything. But you could have given it to Colby. He could have mailed it to me. I'm just saying. I'm just putting.
To be fair to Victor, I don't even know your address. So you want to share that on the show?
That's for a reason.
Now?
And that's for a reason.
I mean, feel free to put it down in the comments if maybe Victor will send you something. I don't know. But no.
I'm good. I'm good. Might not. Yeah. So, all right. So let's switch gears here. Let's get serious here. Let's talk about Ichiro weekend. I had kind of a busy day on Saturday. Got in like I don't know, 30 minutes before the game started, and just, I don't know, I had like a lot going on, and I just kind of forgot like all of this stuff was happening Saturday night. So I turn on the TV, Ichiro's about to go up for his speech, and instantly, just in a moment, I'm just flooded with all these memories, how much I loved Ichiro, and just hearing him speak. That speech was incredible. He did it all in English. It destroyed me. I'm just gonna be real with you. I started bawling like a little baby, and I can't imagine that there were too many dry faces in T-Mobile Park that night when Ichiro started to speak. What was that like in the building? What was that experience like to hear him speak, to be there in his presence, basically?
His presence. Yeah, first of all, great speech. Lots of humor, lots of funny jokes, actually. So the Mariners always knock these ceremonies out of the park. They're always very good. I'm not sure if John Stanton thought the ceremony was about him, because he gave like a 15-minute speech that was awful, quite frankly. Very self-serving. Like, nobody's there to see you, John. Get off the stage, mute the mic, like get him off this, play the music, get him off the stage. But Ichiro's speech was awesome. Rick Riz, great MC. By the way, it's time we put Rick Riz in the Mariners Hall of Fame. What are we waiting for? So yeah,
Yeah, seriously, what the heck is
it doesn't
that?
make
Rick
any
Riz has
sense.
been around for like, so he started out, I believe, in the
85,
early
I think.
80s, then left for Detroit for a little bit, came back, and he's been in Seattle, I think, for the last 30 years since he came back from Detroit.
I think it's been like since like 85, 86, something like that. Like, it's been a long time. So yeah, it's Riz should absolutely be in. But yeah, Ichiro knocked it out of the park. Again, the Mariners do a great job with the Hall of Fame weekend thing. It's the thing they're best at, honestly, is on the field production value. So yeah, it was great. It was funny. I gotta say, man, John Stanton sucks some energy out of the ballpark. I'm not gonna lie. It was like people were just like sitting there like, dude, come on, let's go. But Ichiro's speech, it was emotional. It was funny. It was impressively delivered by somebody who entirely in English, which is obviously not his first language. And it was really moving, and it was I think it was probably what's the word? I think Ichiro made so many jokes in an attempt to I don't know how comfortable Ichiro is with attention, like being the focus of attention. I know he spent most of his career doing it. Doesn't mean you're necessarily good at it. Not that Ichiro's not good with the camera and all that stuff, but it felt like there was a lot of deflection in Ichiro, like thank you for honoring me, but like look over here, like let's talk about something else real fast. And the jokes just played so well, and it was quintessential Ichiro, to be honest with you. It felt so genuine and so real. And honestly, it's what we all should have expected. The only thing Ichiro did that is like surprising to me is they didn't come out in a Mariners uniform. I thought for sure that he was going to come out, full batting gloves,
too. I was very surprised.
Sunglasses on the hat, wristband, like all of it. And he came out in a suit, and it looked great. I mean, Ichiro looks great. Surprise, surprise. But no, it was awesome. It was a very good speech. It was very moving. Again, the Mariners just crushed that stuff. And then the video messages from current players, ex-teammates, all that stuff, they're very good. And yeah, it's kind of a warm-up act, honestly, for Ichiro, because we all know he's going to Cooperstown. So it was awesome to kind of see. And I don't know. I don't know how, like, obviously there's plenty of waterworks in the ballpark, but like, because Ichiro never really went away, you know what I mean? Like, he's always just constantly at the ballpark. I wonder, maybe there was a little bit like, okay, Ichiro, we'll see you tomorrow. You know what I mean? So
right.
Yeah. So it
wasn't a goodbye by any means.
No.
Like, whereas with some of these, it does feel like a goodbye. It feels like a final celebration.
Like,
this is just
exactly.
like, he's going to be at the ballpark tomorrow.
Sure. Like Griffey felt like a final goodbye. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll see you every once in a while. But it like, it's not like it like relationship over type of thing, but it's definitely like, you're going to go do your own thing, and we appreciate it. We just wanted to say thank you. And it felt like that. And then we'll see you when we see you, basically. With Ichiro, it's just like almost like you threw your best friend a retirement party and you're like, all right, we'll see you on the lake tomorrow morning. Like it's just, and that speaks to Ichiro. Cause again, like the best thing about Ichiro is just that he can be anywhere in the world doing anything he wants. He was back on the field on Sunday in full uniform, helping the Mariners outfielders. It's one of those things that just, he's shagging fly ball. He can be doing anything in the world.
Yeah.
And on Sunday, he's wearing his Mariners
speech.
uniform, shagging fly balls. Oh, the speech was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the speech. I love, when he talked about this current team, and I love, when he was talking about Lou giving him a kiss, all that stuff. And he's like, and then, we won 116 games. That's a lot of kisses. Like, I love that. I love, I don't know. I just, so many memories and emotions just came back to me in that moment, hearing him speak, just thinking about the time that has passed. I mean, and thinking about, really, you go back to his very first year, that was the last time the Mariners went to the postseason. And that kind of really puts it into perspective for you, because now you see, Ichiro, he's got gray hair. He's a little bit older looking now. I mean, still, he looks great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Ichiro looks amazing. But, it's just like, you see kind of the age and how time has passed, and it puts, and considering where this current team is, and I love that he did find a way to tie this current team into his speech, because I think that, that really kind of puts everything into perspective here, just from for the Mariners as an organization, really. And I love that. I love how beautifully put together his speech was, how it was all handled. I didn't see the John Stanton stuff, but I mean, I'm not surprised at all. Yeah, lucky me. But
you.
Yeah, that was great. It was great to see Ichiro. It was great to honor him, put him in the Mariners Hall of Fame where he belongs. And I'm sure there's going to be an even better speech coming when he enters Cooperstown. So looking forward to that. All right, let's switch gears here. Let's talk Julio, who also was the center of attention this weekend. A little weird that they announced this, especially during the game on, what was it, Saturday or Friday?
It was Friday night.
Yeah, it was Friday night. They announced it during the game. It was, I don't know, just the whole timing of it was a little weird, especially with the Ichiro weekend going on. But
kind of made sense though.
Yeah, I mean, like in a little way, it kind of feels like, a passing of the torch as well, right?
Yep. The symbolic passing of the torch. Yep.
Yeah, so that's also like, so there's some good with that as well, but also just it was mostly announcing it during the game that was a little weird for me. It was just kind of random, but I guess they were doing it so they could announce it before his at bat and everything. But I thought that was a little strange. Anyway, we now have the full details, because when we last talked about this on Friday's episode, we were just kind of going off of the passing report and what Jesse Sanchez had said and all those guys, and it was just kind of like little pieces here and there, little nuggets here and there, nothing official. Now we have the official details on the contract. So the contract itself right now is just 8 years, $120 million. And that is for this year, and that ends in 2029. After that, though, the Mariners have a club option for either 8 or 10 years. And based on what Julio does over the first 8 years of the contract, if he, places an MVP balloting, etc., he could earn anywhere from $200 million to $350 million on that team option. Now, if the team declines that option, he would then have a 5-year, $90 million player option, which the only way he's taking that is if he goes down the tank. And the only way that the Mariners are declining the team option is if he completely goes down the tank. I don't think any of us expect that. So, 8 to 10 year team option, or an 8 or 10 year team option. So either the Mariners get Julio for 16 years or 18 years. Basically, the Mariners own Julio Rodriguez's rights for the entirety of his career.
Yep.
Because at 18 years, he's 39 years old. He might play a couple more years after that. We don't know how his career is going to go, obviously. But the Mariners, more or less, it's pretty much safe to say the Mariners have Julio for his entire career if they want him. It also comes with a full no-trade clause. So he's here.
Right. Yeah, the minimum for Julio is 8 and 120, I believe, is the minimum.
Yes.
Um, and if he, knock on wood, has a Kyle Lewis like issue pop up or whatever, then he himself is pretty much 13 years, 210 million is what he can lock in. So that's the minimum from Julio's side. The maximum is, I think, like you said, 17 years and $469 million. I think is what it comes out to, if everything hits. That includes a
Mhm.
full no trade clause. We've never seen a contract like it. It's
17
incredibly,
years after 2022, by the way. So technically
yeah,
18
yeah, yeah.
years if you want to include
He
this
gets
season.
he gets a $15 million bonus for this year that the Mariners have to pay by the end of October. But yeah, I think his base salary next year is only $4 million, so it's going to be staggered, as you would do with just about any contract. It's backloaded a little bit, but overall, if Julio maxes out everything, the AAV over this entire contract about $35 million total,
Yeah.
um, which for a superstar player is chump change.
Well, think about it. I mean, there's going to be inflation,
Mhm.
obviously,
Well,
team
superstar players
payrolls
right
are
now
natural.
get $35 million.
Yeah.
So
Like team payrolls are going to rise.
Mhm.
Like by the time that we get towards the back half of this contract and he's making $35 million, it's going to be a steal.
He's like after around year 7, 8, like when he's getting towards the end of the guaranteed part of his contract. Julio, even if Julio is what he is right now for the next 8 years, first of all, that's an all-star. And he's well worth $35 million. If he takes the steps we believe he will take over the next 8 years, he's going to be a $60 million a year player, like value wise, and you're going to have him for less than 35 even, because the big money doesn't kick in until after year 8 or 9, like the big money. So it's a great deal for the Mariners. Apparently, the MVP incentives were Julio's idea, to kind of he liked that he was chasing that or something. Jerry said in his presser. So yes, it's a team friendly deal, as it usually is when a player with less than 1 or 2 years of service time signs a contract extension. It almost always is player team friendly, and Julio's going to be here essentially for his entire career. I think passing right. It feels like the most likely scenario, um, for where this contract ends up is probably you have the 8 years, and then the Mariners probably pick up that 8 year option. It might have to be 10, depending on the MVP, but it seems like most likely
Mm.
is it's going to be 16 years at a minimum. Most likely it'll be 16 years, 357 million, I think is what it is. So,
Mm.
I mean, that takes him well past his prime and into his age 33 season. So, it's a great deal for the Mariners, and you hope he maxes it out, because if he does, Mariners are probably going to win a World Series or two. So,
Mm.
worth every penny.
Yeah. Julio is, I mean, the ceiling is just, I mean, it doesn't even
It's
exist
Mike
for
Trout.
him. Like, that's like, like he's a once in a lifetime player. We said this on Friday, and he chose to be in Seattle. And with this deal, he chose to be in Seattle for his entire career because he knows.
Essentially forever.
He knows. Like, he knows that
Mhm.
if he maxes out, he's staying in Seattle. The team's picking up that option. He knows. Like, he
Right.
chose to stay in Seattle for the entirety of his career with this decision.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Or, yeah, at the very least, the
The
vast
prime of
majority
his
of his
career.
career.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the best years of his career will be played in Seattle.
Yep.
And
That's pretty neat.
That's special. That's
pretty
pretty
neat.
cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I'm still
Yeah.
smiling about it. Yep. It's good
Yep.
stuff.
Yep. I'm very happy with how that went down. Very happy with how Ichiro weekend went down, and very happy with how this series went down. So smiles all around. It was a good weekend for the Mariners. It was a really good weekend for the Mariners, and hopefully they just keep that going. We got 34 games left. They won their 70th game yesterday, and Colby, your magic number for them is 88. So they would have to go 18-16 over their next 34 games in order to make the postseason in your mind. And that sounds more than doable.
Essentially, you have to win one more game than you lose, with the easiest schedule
Yeah.
in baseball. I think if you can't do that, we can fairly call it a collapse, but I'm liking where they're at. I know Mariners fans can't believe it, even when it's, 95 times out of 100. There's that number people love. It's going to I think it's going to happen this year, guys. Again, we'll still track it. You still want to play well. And 88 shouldn't just be just like, oh, well, let's get to 88. Let's get to 92. Why not? Like, let's push it. But the Mariners are in great position still. They're a frustrating team at times, but they're almost certainly going to be a playoff team. And that is something we have not been able to say for 20 years. So enjoy the ride. We're coming towards the end of it. Again, it's a sprint right now. There's no more marathons. We're sprinting towards the finish line. And hopefully the Mariners can continue to kind of play well, build some momentum, and maybe make, the last few weeks of September more or less trivial. Like, I don't think you'll have officially clinched anything, but you kind of get to that point
you'll
where
kind of know where it's heading.
Okay. I don't know exactly when we're going to clinch, but
we're gonna clinch. Yeah.
At some point. So we'll see. But the only way you can get there, you got to play well. And it would really help if you could win this series in Detroit. Keep some momentum going.
Yeah,
you
maybe,
better.
Maybe don't lose to the worst offense in baseball.
The only offense in baseball that's less consistent than you are. But a nice 4-2 road trip would do wonders. Get you back home for the last little difficult stretch of your schedule. So we'll see how it goes. But off day today, travel day, and it'll be up to Kirby, Marco, and Gilbert. So we'll see how they do.
And like you said, this is a frustrating team at times, but as I said in earlier on in the show, those frustrations typically don't last too long with this team. They're able to bounce back from that. So, even if they do let down a little bit here over the next few days, obviously that's not ideal, but I think this team has earned the right for us to, not act like the sky's falling every time they lose a game, right? Or every time, even if they lose a series that maybe they should have won on paper.
No comment.
No comment, yes. Clearly that was directed at you. I'm subtweeting even here on the Locked On Mariners podcast.
Coward.
That's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow Inside the Mariners at Inside Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. It's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts just like us. And with that, have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.